In today's Leeds United news, ex-ref comments on embarrassing display, this weekend's loan watch, Buonanotte must take ownership, and summer exits rumoured. Morning folks, Jay here at the Leeds View for your news on Monday the 16th of March. Hope your weekend went well and you've managed to calm down a little bit after what was a really frustrating day yesterday for Leeds United. And depending on how you want to look at that, it's either a point gained or 2 points dropped. Depends on what way you want to look at it. But a really frustrating performance from a referee yesterday that has us just talking about a referee and not talking about football, which again is becoming a bit of a trend recently for Leeds. But we'll get into it. There's a lot of people have comments about it over the last 24 hours and given their 2 cents on what they thought about the refereeing display and the decision. Not all of it is exactly what you would think though, and there's some surprises in there as well. Just to let you know, if you want to support James Wallace, who does all the graphics for this channel, you can get in touch with him. Studio Wallace's details are there, studiowallace.com. James has been a fantastic help to the channel, so you can give James a shout if you need any graphic design work done. Right, let's move on. Start off with the fallout from yesterday. Of all the people yesterday, Daniel Farke was probably the only one who managed to keep some level of a cool head after what was a shockingly poor refereeing display, which could have cost Leeds every single point coming out of that match. In the end, it definitely hindered Leeds' ability to get the 3 points in it. But again, as I said at the start, depending on how you want to view this, it's either a point gain, considering the circumstances, or it's 2 points dropped because you would have wanted to try and get a win. And I feel with 11 players on the pitch, we could have got all 3 points. But the fallout from this has been very widespread, and it's been comments from embarrassing to unacceptably inconsistent to an absolute disgrace by ex-referees, pundits, fans and footballers in a display that was incredibly frustrating for everybody yesterday. Not just in the red card, but his failure to follow his own set of rules when it came to Brennan Johnson and just general decisions throughout the game. Yes, we got a penalty, but VAR had a big hand in that. But not everyone is in agreement. Former referee Mark Clattenburg is in agreement with Thomas Bramall and believes that Gabby Gudmundsson's second yellow card was a yellow card and should have rightly been sent off. And he said this: Gudmundsson was correctly given a yellow card, a reckless challenge in midfield, which had speed and a degree of force on his opponent. He had already been carded earlier in the match, so it was correctly given a second yellow card. Now, a comment like that from Mark Clattenburg shouldn't really surprise anybody. Clattenburg will always try and side with the referees so they don't look like they've done anything wrong, and doesn't call the professionalism or ability of these referees into question. But there wasn't a huge amount of force in it. There wasn't a huge amount of speed in it. And there was barely any contact, if any contact at all. And the referee's own facial expressions during that incident, where he looked completely shocked that he booked Gabby Gudmundsson in that situation. He got it all wrong. But surprisingly, Wayne Rooney's chirped in on this, and he said on punditry duty yesterday that he didn't know if it was even a yellow card at all. And the fact that the referee had clearly forgotten that he carded Gabby Gudmundsson was strange. But Rooney also went a step further and labelled Canvo's celebration of the red card an absolute disgrace, and that no player should ever celebrate a fellow professional getting sent off the park. Former referee Keith Hackett has also had his opinion on this, and he was confused by the situation and said there was a lack of consistency. Brennan Johnson's tackles were worse than Gabby Gudmundsson's, and they were allowed to go unpunished bar one. And Brennan Johnson definitely, by the referee's own standard yesterday, definitely should have had a second yellow card in the second half before he was eventually taken off the pitch. But Hackett called Gudmundsson's sending off harsh and spoke to MOT Leeds News and said the following: I'm not giving a yellow card for either challenge. The referee made a hash of the first one and rightly judged the second one correctly without issuing a card. However, it highlighted the level of unacceptable inconsistency. Thomas Bramall has had his issues with Leeds United in the past. Daniel Farke had very strong words about him last season when he allowed Luton Town to kick absolute lumps out of Leeds United. And we've also had issues with him this season as well. So there's a question mark around Thomas Bramall and what the issue is with Leeds United. There is, of course, the topic that his second name is Bramall and he's from Sheffield. But I'll let you decide your opinion on that one. I won't jump into the conspiracy theories. But just from using your eyeballs yesterday, you could see that was an incredibly poor performance by a referee who looked absolutely out of his depth yesterday afternoon. But we'll get into it later on. We'll have a chat with the lads and we'll see what their opinions are of it as well. Let's try and calm down a little bit. Let's jump into this weekend's loan watch. Start off with Joe Gelhardt, who started and played 75 minutes in Hull's 3-0 away defeat at West Brom. Mateo Joseph played the full 90 minutes for Real Mallorca in a vital 2-1 win over Espanyol at home. Jack Harrison will play tonight for Fiorentina, but did come off the bench in their 2-1 Conference League win in midweek. Isaac Schmidt came off the bench on the 69th minute in Werder Bremen's 2-0 home loss to Mainz. Bremen are now just 1 point above the drop zone. Largi Ramazani played 90 minutes for Valencia in their 1-0 away loss to Real Oviedo. Rory Mahadi was an unused sub again for Scunthorpe United in their 2-1 home win over Altrincham. Did play midweek for the Leeds United under 21s. Conor Douglas played 90 minutes and got the assist for the winner in Buxton's 2-1 win against Charlie. Alex Baird started and played 90 minutes for Bridlington Town in their 1-1 draw with Hallam. And Harry Gray started playing 89 minutes for Rotherham as they drew 2-2 at home to Bolton. Mixed bag again this week for the Lonies, and Max Ferber will be back after international break. I'll give you detail on him and let you know how Jack Harrison gets on tomorrow when he plays, for those who care. Anyway, let's move on to talk about James Justin. Fast becoming a Stuart Dallas utility level player for Leeds United, James Justin had a really strong month for Leeds last month in February, and Justin has now picked up the Leeds United Fan Player of the Month award for February, and he did it by collecting 32% of the overall vote. Well done. Really, really strong month. He's been very good for Leeds, again playing at right back yesterday, dropping in at centre half when he needed to, and he will likely have to fill in for Gabby Goodmunson now against Brentford next Saturday night at left back. But a very solid month for a player who has been very consistent when he plays for Leeds United. But let's move on and talk about a player who's not been so consistent in Facundo Buonanotte. Brighton manager Fabian Husler told his on-loan attacker Facundo Buonanotte to take ownership over a wasted season. Buonanotte may have hope for some sympathy from his parent club, but Husler has gone in, maybe not two-footed, but definitely gone in with 1 foot and the studs slightly up on him. But Leeds knew when they signed Facundo Buonanotte that there was a level of risk to this. They talked about the fact that they didn't expect him to cut the league into pieces, and Daniel Farke had also said earlier last month that it wasn't a huge risk for Leeds. If it worked out, great. If it didn't, it wasn't that big of a deal. And I think we can understand why. He hasn't had a huge amount of football this season. The fitness clearly is a problem as well. It has been commented on, but Husler also commented on the situation when he was asked about it, and he said the following. Wasted season, I think maybe a little tough to say, but I think every experience for players is important, no matter if they play or not. Of course, if you give a player on loan, it's always helpful that they play, but in the end, we can't make that decision. It's the other clubs who will make that decision, and therefore, the coach, Daniel Farke, will have a reason why he's not playing, and then it's about the player to understand what he needs to improve to get into the team. Hustler also commented that Buonanotte needs to show value during training, and maybe leaning into Daniel Farke's comments again earlier this month when he said that hard work fixes everything when talking about Buonanotte, but his decision to go on loan to Chelsea at the beginning of the season when everybody seemed to know what was going to happen has now looked like it has come back to haunt him a little bit, and he has potentially risked wasting an entire season of football and development at a really, really important age. There is a lesson you will learn from this, and probably the most important lesson is don't always listen to everything that your agent says to you. Have a long think about stuff and weigh up your options. Leaving a club that are mid-table in the Premier League to go and play at a Champions League level club on loan, you should have realised what you were walking into. But Husler did said that he hopes that Buonanotte can experience some form of recovery from this, and if he doesn't, he said that he will experience the consequences of the decisions that he's made this season. So Husler is, like Daniel Farke, putting this very much down on the player's feet, and he knows the player probably better than anybody. Daniel Farke will be the same. So both of them seem to be on the same page when it comes to Facundo Buonanotte in what has been a bizarre season for him and a bit of a waste for Leeds in January. But let's move on and talk about potential summer exits. We've talked about Leeds United's potential summer budget should we remain in the Premier League, but Leeds also need to get better at offloading players, whether they're our favourite players or not, and whether we like them or not. Leeds need to do better if they are to upgrade this squad, and all of this will be dependent on what league Leeds United are playing in next season. There's a fresh report, or fresh rumoured report if you want to call it that say Leeds United will look to offload at least 5 players once the summer transfer window opens. The names that are being mentioned won't shock a huge amount of people, but again, some of these names probably shouldn't be written off just yet, and there are some caveats to why they might be on their way out. Sky Sports believe that Daniel James and Willie Gnonto will likely be sold this summer, and the caveat is more so down to the system than it is down to any of their playing ability. Right now, Leeds aren't playing with wingers, so they don't really have a huge amount to add to the system, but should Daniel Farke eventually decide to go back to his preferred 4-2-3-1, maybe they come back into the fold. But it's not just the two lads that have been mentioned. To absolute nobody's surprise, Joe Pirou is also a name that has been mentioned, and we know from his own mouth, and he spoke publicly this month, that he will review his situation come this summer and will likely move on. Leeds have been linked with a ton of strikers in the summer. Definitely be looking to add another number 9. Leeds also are said to want to offload Max Ferber, Isaac Schmidt and Joe Gelhardt this summer, and some of those might be slightly easier than others to get off the books. Leeds might have to cut their losses with Max Ferber. Isaac Schmidt might go back where he came from, and Joe Gelhardt will likely have plenty of interest after a really strong season from him. But again, this will all depend on Leeds United's divisional status next season. Should Leeds stay in the Premier League, they need to upgrade the bench. They need to upgrade certain positions. They need to probably bring in a little bit of individual quality as well to that side. But if they go down, they'll likely retain all of these players because they will be more than likely good enough to get Leeds United back into the Premier League at the first time of asking should they go down. Leeds have managed to retain the bulk of the squad they had in the Championship from last season. So if they do go down, that squad is still there and hopefully good enough to bring them straight back up. Fingers crossed that doesn't happen. We don't go down. Still a bit of work to do on that just yet. A huge game of the weekend against Brentford. But the results could have been worse this weekend. They could have been better. But they could have definitely been an awful lot worse. And Leeds go into this last 9 run of games in exactly the same position they went into last weekend. So another week down. See how we go. We'll review it on the podcast and we'll start getting ready to look ahead to what is fast becoming a must-win game against Brentford at Elland Road next Saturday night. And that won't be straightforward or easy by any stretch of the imagination, but Leeds will need to try and get at them again. Set up, I think, the way they had set up against Crystal Palace, a little bit more quality needed than there was in the first half in that game. But we'll see how it goes. Anyway, folks, thanks for joining me and watching me today. If you could like the video on your way out the door, that would be massively appreciated. Do appreciate everyone who watches the content and subscribes to the channel. Outside of that, enjoy the rest of your day. I'll talk to you later on. See you. Bye.